This image will be familiar to anyone who has studied psychology at universities or is interested in psychology. The date is 1951. Swarthmore College students gathered together, thinking they were participating in a visual memory experiment. The person standing on the right is Solomon Asch, one of the most recognized names in the world of psychology. But at the center of this experiment are these sticks. Yes, the students are first shown a card with sticks classified as A, B and C. Then they are shown another card with only one stick. Solomon Asch asks the question, which stick is this one stick the same as the stick on the other card? When you hear this, perhaps you think that everyone will give the same answer. And the students mostly gave the same answer, C, but this is not the case. Herein lies the deeper meaning of Solomon Asch's experiment. In fact, this experiment revealed a mechanism that works much deeper than the rods. Imagine that you are in that photograph. You are participating in a visual test like any other student, and you are surrounded by others doing the same experiment. You are asked which stick is the same and it is your turn. At first everything seems fine, everyone chooses the stick you think is the same. But then, all of a sudden, they all start choosing the wrong stick. Now think, what would you do? Describe yourself. What role would you play in a group? Would you be compliant or rebellious? A vocal leader or a critic who questions the norm? Many of us might think of ourselves as rebellious. We may be someone who speaks up when we see injustice in a group. Maybe we don't keep quiet, but we recognize the injustice deep down inside and have no doubt that it is wrong. But here's where it gets more complicated. Solomon Asch tried to show this by conducting this experiment, harmony. The tendency to conform to the unwritten rules of the group to which one belongs. This has long been a subject of interest in psychology, sociology, and politics. Trying to understand people's tendency to conform to or defy social norms. Solomon Asch's conformity experiment is one of the most well-known studies on this subject. It is a striking example of how powerful the pressure exerted by crowds can be. Let's take a closer look at how the experiment was conducted. Then let's examine the striking results and their meaning in life. First of all, let's remember that the majority of the participants in the experiment were cooperative. That is to say, they were contracted participants who were unaware of the true purpose of the experiment. Into this group is placed a subject who thinks he or she is participating in the experiment, unaware of the true purpose. The agreement participants are told in advance how they are supposed to behave and how the subject will react to their behavior. In each experiment, the unaware subjects are put together with different groups of contracted participants. The subjects are told that they will only be given a visual test. At first it may seem like a simple test of visual skills or memory. However, this is where the sticks come in. They are asked to tell which of 3 lines on one sheet of paper is the same as which of 3 lines on another sheet. The contracted participants are instructed in advance to take turns saying which line is the same. At this point, Solomon Asch's main interest emerges, the tendency to conform. At the beginning of the experiment, participants usually say the correct answer. Over time, however, the agreement participants start to give the wrong answer in unison. The bar comparison in the experiment is actually quite simple. At first glance, it looks like a situation where everyone can easily find the right answer. But when it's used only as a reliability check, the results are almost completely accurate. The percentage of wrong answers is as low as 1%. The interesting part comes in the main part of the experiment. 75% of the subjects chose to follow the group at least once. They put aside their own thoughts and judgments and adapt to the wrong answer given by the group. 75% is a very high percentage. Even in this simple experiment, people's desire to conform to the norms of the group and the tendency to sacrifice their own thoughts for this is very evident. The results of the experiment highlight an important influence that affects a wide range of aspects of human life, from our behavior in society to our relationships, from education to politics. To understand this effect further, let's take a look at the factors that influence the experiment. In particular, group size plays an important role. The larger the group, the greater the tendency to adapt. Likewise, despite the simplicity of the choice in the experiment, the tendency to conform to group norms becomes quite pronounced. As the choice becomes more complex, people start to question group decisions more and more. Social status also influences this effect. The idea that the individuals who make up the group are superior to you can increase the tendency to conform to group norms. What is interesting, however, is how this effect is reflected in real life. The tendency to conform within any group plays a decisive role in many areas, from social life and relationships to education, social science, and even politics. It is also possible to observe this effect in modern life. Especially on social media platforms, people often tend to conform to groupthink. When you want to get information about a topic, you often come across people's comments. However, these comments can be a substitute for real information and people tend to conform to groupthink. But there is one thing to remember: there is always a voice of dissent, a rebel. One person who speaks up, who questions the situation, can change the whole thinking. One person who stands up against wrong, who takes a step, who goes against the tide, can make a difference. The conclusion from these experiments is that people generally tend to conform to the group. However, it should not be forgotten that it is always the voice of one person that creates change and awareness in society. Therefore, we should not hesitate to question and criticize ourselves and change the situation if necessary. With all these thoughts, goodbye until we meet again. It is good to be with you. Best regards.